Hello, everyone, and welcome, Kay and Mila Falcha. 100,000 welcomes on this beautiful St. Patrick's Day. My name is Kayla, and I'm from Butterfly Pavilion, and welcome to Invertebrate Investigations. This month, we are talking about women in entomology. If you have any questions at any point, please drop them in the chat. I'll get to them as quick as I can. Um, and we're only going to have about 15 minutes. I have five women who either historically or are currently making waves in the field of entomology. It's a really big topic. I had to limit it to five. It was really hard to narrow it down. But before we get started, if you are not subscribed to Butterfly Pavilion's YouTube channel, please do so. We have the best sorts of notifications that there are cute bugs and things to learn. So let's go ahead and get started. So up first, we have a very important woman in the history of entomology. This is Maria Sibylla Merian. She was a German entomologist, naturalist, and a science illustrator who lived in the 18th century, 17th and 18th century. And she is considered the mother of entomology. Maria Sibylla Merian, she was working on science before really even a whole lot of men were working in science, but much less women. She did field work in South America. And her illustrations actually gave us a lot of information about the life cycle of insects. Now, we know that butterflies go through a four-stage life cycle, right? They start as caterpillars and they go through their pupa, and then they come out and they're butterflies. But we did not always know that. And there was a time where it was kind of thought that butterflies and caterpillars were completely different animals, and that they kind of just were spontaneously generated. They were born of mud, and it's really easy for us now to be like, "Oh, that's silly. Why would anyone think that?" However, if I told you that this weird little furry worm thing crawling around on a plant was the exact same animal as this big, beautiful blue winged insect, you would probably think I was crazy. We know now because we've observed it and we've seen it enough times that we know the magic of metamorphosis. But when Maria Sibylla Merian was doing her research, not a lot of people knew that, and it certainly wasn't accepted by the mainstream scientific community. She did a lot of observations and then she illustrated those. So here are just a couple of my favorite of her illustrations. We've got on the left here, if you've been to Butterfly Pavilion, you might recognize this butterfly. That's a blue morpho. And then over here we have, I believe we have a tobacco hornworm, which is the larva, and then we'd have a sphinx moth. Through basically just observing, right? She would just sit and watch the animals and watch the caterpillars make their pupa and then watch those pupa as they developed and then watch the butterflies or the moths come out. And you can actually, the British Museum has a very, very large collection of her digitized work. So it's just the britishmuseum.org. And then if you search their collections, you can find her beautiful illustrations. We also have illustrations from her daughters as well. So some of them are maybe her daughters finished them. But you can see really, really beautiful illustrations. So even without the scientific knowledge behind them, some really, really gorgeous ones. Here's one. This is a very famous one on some tarantulas that she did, if it'll load for me. So here we have pink-toed tarantulas. We've got, looks like some orb weavers. We have leaf cutter ants. All of these beautiful illustrations that she did. And one thing that I really love about her as well is that she proves that to be a scientist, you don't need years and years of training. You don't need to go to school forever. You really can just go out and start observing nature and start recording it. So for any of my young scientists out there, you can go ahead and start practicing those skills, especially if you're wanting to go into field work where you're out studying animals or plants or anything. Grab a notebook and just start practicing. Start watching the squirrels in your backyard. Maybe there's a spider that lives in your bathroom. Just start making observations. Draw what you see. You don't need special equipment or a ton of training to be a scientist. Anyone can do that. It really is just making observations and then noting them down. All right, so from our mother of entomology, we're going to fast forward a couple hundred years. We have Dr. Edith Patch. So she was an American entomologist and writer. She got her PhD in entomology from Cornell in 1911. So in the United States, this was before women could vote. And women in higher academia were pretty rare, much less women in entomology and in the sciences. It was not really considered a place for women. But she said, nope, I think I'm going to do that anyway. And she was also the first woman president of the Entomological Society of America. So the ESA still exists, and they do a lot of great work around the study of insects. Dr. Patch also really started talking about, before a lot of other scientists were, about the dangers of pesticides and how important our pollinators are for our ecosystems. It was a 1938 essay called Without the Benefit of Insects. And unfortunately, I could not find the full text. But in that essay, she writes about the importance of like biological pest control. So using insects to control pest insects. And how important our pollinators are for our ecosystems, and that pesticides are causing problems. So this was over 20 years before Rachel Carson wrote and published Silent Spring, which is kind of considered the beginning of the modern environmental movement. So 25 plus years before that, Dr. Patch was out there talking about these important topics. She also was an expert on aphids, and she has an entire genus of aphids named after her. So if you would like to learn more about her, there is a biography written by K. Elizabeth Gibbs. It's called Without Benefit of Insects, the story of Edith M. Patch of the University of Maine. And this biography is available full text online. You can actually find the PDF. So if you would like to learn more about Dr. Patch, you can just do a Google search and find her biography. All right, up next we have Dr. Margaret Collins, another fantastic entomologist. So she was an American entomologist, a termite expert, and a civil rights activist. And she was the first African American woman to earn a PhD in entomology. So Dr. Collins was working kind of the 40s and 50s when she was starting her career. So not only was she going up against kind of misogyny in higher academia and sciences, she was also dealing with racism. And for a Black woman to earn her PhD, to be active in field work, all of that was kind of frowned upon. She also, again, civil rights activist. She was a volunteer driver for the Tallahassee bus boycott. And was really deeply involved in that. She was also a child prodigy. She finished high school at 14 and went on to college, and then got her undergrad, her master's, and then eventually her PhD. And she is still considered one of the preeminent experts on termites. She did a lot of research around them, especially around their resistance to dehydration, and learning about them. And she really, really loved field work. So being out in the field, doing that research on the ground. So here are some photos I found. On the left here, we have her with a very large termite mound in 1989. And then on the right, her in the field in 1993. And she was active in field work until her death in 1996. So really fantastic woman. A lot of what we know about termites, we know because of her. And she really paved the way for a lot of scientists coming down the road, including my next one, who is a contemporary. So up next, we have Dr. Jessica Ware. She is an evolutionary biologist and entomologist, and she currently is the curator at the American Museum of Natural History, and she's the chair of the Division of Invertebrate Zoology. So I love Dr. Ware. She is a fantastic science communicator. I really look up to her, and as a science communicator myself, I'm always looking to get better, and so I look to her. You may have seen her. You could have seen her in lots of places. So she has a children's book called A Day in the Life of Bugs. Really, really adorable book. She's one of the founders of Entomologists of Color. She has a YouTube series called Insectarium with the American Museum of Natural History and PBS. She's been featured on Wired tech supports videos. So for bug support, she's been featured on Ologies talking about dragonflies. She's been on Star Talk talking about cicadas. So definitely check her out. Also, beyond doing all really awesome like YouTube stuff, she is a scholar. And evolutionary biology at the scholarly level is hard. So if you go to her Google Scholar page, she has a ton of papers you can see. So if you're wanting to read up around the evolution of defensive strategies in the treehopper tribe Darnini, revisiting use-anchored hybrid enrichment data, all of this if you want to dig into some scientific reading, some academic reading, definitely check her out. So she's done a lot of research on dragonflies, cicadas, and cockroaches as well. So please check her out. All right, my final scientist. I actually picked someone from Butterfly Pavilion, and I am so fortunate to work with a ton of amazing women at this organization, and it was really hard to just pick one. So this is absolutely no means the only amazing woman in entomology here at Butterfly Pavilion, but I wanted to pick one, and that is Sharon Herskovich. So she is our lepidopterist manager at Butterfly Pavilion. So she handles pretty much everything to do with our butterflies. So ordering them from our suppliers, making sure that their habitat in our conservatory is appropriate. She is running a community science project here with our butterflies. So if you come visit and you see ones with the little stickers on their wings, she is the one heading up that study. And we're looking at primarily butterfly longevity, but also looking at food preferences, behavior patterns, things like that. And then Sharon does also serve on AZA's Safe Monarch Program Steering Committee. So the AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. They are the kind of regulatory body that oversees organizations like us. And then SAFE is Saving Animals from Extinction, and then the Monarch Program. So she has done a lot of work in Mexico on monarch conservation. She also locally works with the Colorado Butterfly Monitoring Network. She does speaking engagements. She's a really fantastic communicator, and she loves our butterflies. And I am so fortunate to know her and to learn from her. So if you're local, maybe you'll see Sharon around. Sometimes she does work with like our open space networks around here. And maybe if you come to Butterfly Pavilion, you might even see her running around. So there we have it. There are 5 incredible women who have made waves and are currently making waves in entomology. But if I have any young ladies out there who are thinking about going into science, I want to encourage you to do that. Even when I was a kid, it was like a little bit weird to think about women going into science, and I didn't originally intend to go into this field. But I really want to encourage you because we need those diverse points of view in our industry. And also, it's not all field work, right? If you're maybe not the person who wants to be out in the desert studying beetles in the 90-degree heat or whatever, you can work in education. That's what I do. We also have people who handle our guest services, our marketing, our just kind of general like operations of the building. All sorts of positions within a zoo or science if you're wanting to do that. So I highly encourage you, anyone really, not just my young ladies, all my young scientists that continue learning things, continue to study, and who knows, maybe you could work at Butterfly Pavilion or another zoo one day. All right, I am not seeing any comments in the chat. That's all right. So thank you all so much for joining. If you missed the live stream, don't worry, it'll be up on recording. And then be sure to join me next month. And actually, let me double check and make sure I tell you the right date. We are going to be talking about corals in April. So looking at kind of the mysteries of corals. Are they plants? Are they animals? What does coral bleaching mean anyway? Why should we care? Especially if I live in Colorado, I'm nowhere near the ocean. What does it matter? How do corals impact my life if I don't live anywhere near the ocean? And apologies, my calendar is being super slow. Coming up. I believe I'm doing this on April 9th, but I want to make sure I don't tell you wrong. April 9th. Yes, April 9th, 11 a.m. We're going to be talking about corals. So And we're going to learn a little bit about what Butterfly Pavilion is doing around coral conservation as well. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Happy Women's History Month. And I'll see y'all next month. Bye.